Jackson and Dr. Cannon recognized, and Dr. Cannon was a mental health worker at UCLA, and he gave grounding to all the mental health facilities in South Los Angeles today, including Drew. They got together and decided that the arts could be to serve as a cross-communication vehicle for the so-called minority groups to talk to one another, because they were experiencing the same issues and problems in terms of education, jobs, so on and so forth. So arts was the vehicle. So Jack said multicultural, multiracial, multi-ethnic. That's what he wanted to do. He said, well, let's not, in a sense, we don't have to have the conversation with the majority culture. We need to get together and talk amongst ourselves about how we as artists can have an impact. So he brought all those groups together. And so Jack became the first, multiracial ethnic, a precursor to diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's what they call it today. He was a guy that also established the philosophy of colorblind and non-traditional casting.
And that means that I could be in a Shakespeare production, for example, which was a rare opportunity for someone who looks like me. And I could be the daughter of somebody who was Hispanic. I could be the wife of somebody who was an African. I could be the sister, even, of an Asian American. It just didn't matter. It was the most extraordinary choice to make, because we got a chance to be on stage and do what we do.
He was also, in the Inner City Cultural Center, was also the largest producer of black theater in California, if not the country at the time. Okay. They also, one of the key things that Inner City did is that they ultimately purchased the theaters that they performed in. Since it was on the West Coast, and Jack had already made a lot of connections in the dance community with people like Alvin Ailey, with the Dance Theater Harlem, and Arthur Mitchell's company, Jack became their West Coast counterparts, as well as he became the West Coast counterpart for the Negro Ensemble Company. And again, that's just talking about the African American community. But he also brought in a whole mix of multi-ethnic, cultural, and racial, theater groups. Luis Valdez, Teatro Campesino, Carmen Zapata, Brazilian groups, Cuban groups. Even when there was an embargo against Cuba, he was bringing in Cuban groups, Japanese groups. I mean, he had the whole mix. No other performing arts venue in the city at that time had that mix until UCLA began to do that a couple of years after Jack used that as a cornerstone. So, I mean, that's what makes Inner City such a wealth of information and a treasure. I mean, a number of Academy Award nominees as well as Academy Award winners set their foot on the stages of Inner City young in their careers. And some of those people are still performing today. Glenn Turman, for example. You may know of George Wolfe, who spent 3 or 4 years in Inner City before he went to Joe Papp's Theater, Public Theater in New York. Number of Tony Awards. I mean, the whole nine. I mean, Denzel Washington even. There's a whole litany of things about that history. See, without what I call, and I've used the term, these anchor arts infrastructure projects, a building, a storefront, without those spaces, there can be no entry at the entry level for anybody who's even curious about pursuing something that they feel close to and about.
And that's the legacy of C. Bernard Jackson. And before my generation leaves this place, we're going to make sure that there's a platform that remains so that folks of all hues have an opportunity to use and shout, if they choose, their own voice.